Something big is brewing in Las Vegas. The Raiders have just closed the chapter on OTAs and mandatory minicamp. The next page? Training camp, preseason, and then the storm of the regular season. But here's the twist. Not every player wearing silver and black today will be standing on the sidelines tomorrow. Today, we're diving into 5 Raiders whose futures are hanging by a thread. These are players the franchise believed in, some drafted, some signed, but now they're walking on thin ice. And here's why. A new era has begun. A new coach, a fresh playbook, and a different energy inside that locker room. The entire vibe has shifted. And while fans are watching new stars rise, a few familiar names might not make it past training camp. But before we dive into the first name, take one quick second. If you love real, no-nonsense updates about the Raiders, smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a breaking story. All right, let's get back into it. Let's talk about Thayer Munford. He came in as a 7th-round pick and made waves, playing both left and right tackle as a rookie. That's no small task. And honestly, he held his own. There was real promise. The kind of effort that made people believe he could lock down the right tackle spot. But that was then. Now, under this new regime, schemes are changing, standards are rising, and roster spots are limited. And Munford? He's dangerously close to being left behind. Thayer Munford's journey with the Raiders is taking a sharp turn, and not in the direction fans hoped for. Last season, he was handed the first shot at securing the right tackle spot. But after an untimely injury, opportunity slipped through his fingers. That's when 3rd-round rookie DJ Glaze stepped in and didn't look back. Today, that job is Glaze's to lose, and Munford? He's no longer even in the tackle conversation. The coaching staff has officially moved him to guard, a position change that speaks volumes about where he stands. But here's the real issue. There might not be room for him on this roster at all. The Raiders are building something lean and efficient, and every roster spot matters. Right now, Munford doesn't appear to be in the mix at tackle or guard. And if you map out the current offensive line, it becomes even clearer. Kolton Miller, locked in. Jackson Powers-Johnson, no question. DJ Glaze and another 3rd-round rookie, they're not going anywhere. That's 4. Then you've got 2 starting guards, Alex Kappa and Dylan Parham, bringing the total to 6. If the Raiders carried just 8 offensive linemen, like most expect, the margin is razor thin. And with young depth pieces likely sliding into practice squad roles under the league's new protection rules, Munford could be the odd man out. His versatility was once a strength, but now, in this fast-evolving system, it might not be enough. With DJ Glaze locked in, that brings the count to 7 offensive linemen. And if the Raiders stick with the usual plan of carrying 8, there's only 1 spot left. So the real question becomes, who gets it? Thayer Munford's chances are hanging in the balance. The Raiders aren't just looking for a body, they need versatility, especially someone who can handle both center and guard. Dylan Parham has done that in the past, but with the new coaching staff, availability and durability are becoming non-negotiable traits. Just look at the case of Nate Hobbs. Injuries cost him favor, and now he's gone. That's why names like Will Putnam and Jordan Meredith are suddenly in the conversation. Meredith is already handling second-team center reps. He fits the profile, dependable, flexible, and healthy. That gives him an edge. Now, yes, Munford did see some first-team action when Parham went down, which shows there's still belief in his skill. And sure, his guard tackle flexibility adds value. But zoom out for a second. The Raiders already have Kolton Miller, DJ Glaze, and Charles Grant locked into tackle spots. And don't forget Dalton Wagner, a name that's quietly gaining momentum. He's entering year 3 with the team, and that means something. He's been developed, tested, and clearly kept around for a reason. Let's be real. If Munford ends up cut, another team will likely scoop him up. But at this moment, Las Vegas is trying to craft the smartest and most efficient offensive line possible. If Wagner shows more upside in camp, he could absolutely win that final spot. Even Will Putnam, an undrafted guy last year, made the 53-man roster. That tells you the Raiders are willing to reward hustle, not just draft status. So as camp heats up and the preseason rolls in, every snap matters. One good game could change everything, but one bad rep, that could be the end. One of the most underrated parts of preseason, watching the underdogs fight for their lives. When the backups, the third stringers, and the no-names take the field, you're not just seeing filler reps, you're witnessing a battle for survival. Because every once in a while, a future starter is born in those final minutes of a meaningless August game. Think about it. Players like Andre James started their journeys that way. Unnoticed, undervalued, until one day they weren't. And while Thayer Munford leads our list of players on the edge, he's not alone. There's another name that could surprise fans, Tommy Eichenberg, last year's 5th-round pick. Yes, some might be shocked to hear his name come up. But let's be honest, this isn't the same regime that drafted him. John Spiddick and the current coaching staff, led by Pete Carroll, are building this team their way. And that puts Eichenberg's roster spot in serious doubt. On paper, Eichenberg has some solid traits. He's a physical tackler, reads the run well, and shows flashes in coverage. But in today's NFL, that's not enough, especially when you weren't a hand-picked player by the current front office. And so far, he hasn't shown anything to demand a spot on the depth chart. Sure, linebackers can develop over time. Look at guys like Jermaine Pratt or Robert Spillane, late picks who grew into key pieces. But they showed sparks early on. With Eichenberg, there's still silence. Right now, his biggest contribution is on special teams. But in this league, special teams roles are easy to replace. Every training camp brings a wave of hungry athletes ready to fill that gap for less. And that's the hard truth. If you're not standing out, you're being replaced. The Raiders have already added serious names at linebacker, Landon Roberts, Jermaine Pratt, and Devin White. That's a stacked room. And Eichenberg? He's on the outside looking in. Let's break this down. The Raiders didn't just tweak their linebacker room this offseason, they overhauled it. They brought in 4 seasoned veterans. These aren't camp bodies. These are experienced guys with leadership, grit, and game tape to back them up. Names like Jalen Smith and others aren't coming to Vegas to fight for scraps. They're expected to contribute. And unless something major happens in training camp, it would be shocking if all 4 don't make the final 53. Then add in Cody Lindenberg, a 7th-round pick. He's young, he's cheap, and he's full of upside. Now, sure, the Raiders could try to sneak him onto the practice squad, but that's a risk. Because once you release a rookie with potential, another team is always lurking, ready to claim and develop him. So that's 5 linebackers already. Now, here's where it gets even more interesting. Omari Burney's been turning heads, and not just with fans. We're talking Maxx Crosby giving him props. Even Devin White, a veteran who knows what elite linebacker play looks like, has called him out in a good way. And Burney? He's not just talk. He's 6'3", athletic, and made serious noise last preseason. Some might argue he outperformed Tommy Eichenberg back then. Doesn't matter if you're drafted or undrafted. What matters is how you play right now. And Burney is making plays. So if Burney sticks, and it's looking more likely by the day, you're suddenly at 6 linebackers. That's probably more than the Raiders plan to keep. Which leads us to the uncomfortable truth. Tommy Eichenberg's spot is in real danger. The numbers just don't work in his favor. The coaching staff is leaning toward guys who fit today's scheme. And keep this in mind, most NFL teams, including the Raiders, will lean heavily into nickel defense this year. That means 2 linebackers on the field, not 3. No strong side, no weak side. Just 2 fast, smart hybrid backers who can move sideline to sideline and survive in coverage. If you're not one of those guys, you're watching from the sidelines or worse, off the roster entirely. In today's NFL, versatility isn't a luxury, it's a requirement. And for linebackers, that means being able to do more than just drop into coverage or chase a running back. It means lining up on the line of scrimmage. It means shifting into different looks as the offense motions. And most importantly, It means being useful in any defensive package, not just base defense. That's why names like Omari Gaynor and Cody Lindenberg stand out. Both have shown they can line up in the stack, your traditional linebacker spot, but they also have the burst and physicality to come up to the line of scrimmage when needed. Now compare that with someone like Tommy Eichenberg. He's a stack-only guy, not a pass rusher, not an edge presence. And that's exactly what's limiting his upside in this system. The Raiders' defense is expected to live in nickel formations, meaning only two linebackers on the field most of the time. Gone are the days of strong side and weak side assignments. Modern offenses motion too frequently. You have to be ready to play sideline to sideline. And Eichenberg, he doesn't offer that level of versatility. Meanwhile, the Raiders aren't just relying on familiar names. They've also brought in two rookie linebackers, Jalen Walker and Matt Jones, both wild cards in the competition. No one knows yet what they'll become, but if either flashes potential during camp, it could be curtains for a guy like Tommy. Now, let's flip to the offensive line. Dylan Parham is our third name under the spotlight. Don't get it twisted, Parham has real potential. In fact, many believe he could develop into a starting caliber guard for nearly a decade. The issue? He's been bounced around like a ping-pong ball. In college, he played right guard. In the pros, the Raiders threw him to the left side, then switched him back, then moved him again. Now he's expected to start at left guard once more. This constant shifting has slowed his development. And worse, he's developed a reputation for being injury-prone. And if there's one thing GM John Spiddick values above all else, it's availability. He's not afraid to move on from players who can't stay on the field. Sure, the Raiders brought in Alex Kappa, who had an ACL injury in the past, but outside that, he's been reliable. Same goes for guys like Malcolm Koonce, solid, healthy, consistent. Meanwhile, even Colton Miller, a veteran anchor, has been banged up a lot in the past few seasons, and that's reportedly one reason Spiddick hasn't extended him yet. So, where does that leave Parham? He's got talent, but in a team being rebuilt with toughness, reliability, and versatility at the core, he needs to prove he's not just a starter, but one the Raiders can count on week in and week out. Now let's talk about the Dylan Parham situation, because this could be one of the most unexpected moves of the offseason. Parham has shown flashes in the past. He's young, athletic, and has starting experience. But here's the problem. He can't stay healthy. And in a league where durability is everything, that's a deal breaker. He was present on day 1 of mandatory minicamp and injured by day 2. That's not just unlucky, that's a red flag. Meanwhile, the Raiders have brought in Alex Kappa, a proven veteran who adds immediate stability to the guard spot. And behind him, there's a growing crowd of linemen ready to take over. Thayer Munford is getting guard reps. Caleb Rogers is already being viewed strictly as a guard. Jordan Meredith has been rotating between center and guard, showing off his versatility. And then there's Jared Hufford, who may be raw, but he's got strength, grit, and upside. That's 4 capable interior linemen, not counting Parham. And here's something fans should remember. Lockie Tassi doesn't even count against the 53-man roster this year. So the Raiders have flexibility to stash another developmental guard if they need to. The math is tight, and Parham isn't helping himself by sitting out. If he misses more time in training camp, don't be shocked if Las Vegas decides to move on. This regime is clearly prioritizing flexibility and availability, and if you're not both, you're falling behind. But we're not done. Let's talk about Damaron Richardson, a 4th-round pick this year. You'd think he'd be safe, right? Not necessarily. The Raiders' secondary is quietly becoming one of the more competitive groups on the roster. And when you stack Richardson next to the other DBs in camp, he hasn't separated himself. He's not bad, but in a crowded room, not bad isn't good enough. Names like Jack Jones, Trevon Moehrig, Marcus Epps, Isaiah Polamau, and Christopher Smith too are all fighting for time, and many of them are simply ahead of Richardson in both consistency and trust with the coaches. And while some fans think Tommy Eichenberg could stick around as a depth linebacker, it's hard to say the same for Richardson. The truth Unless he explodes in camp or dominates on special teams, he might not make it past final cuts. The Raiders' cornerback room is loaded, and the pressure is sky high. Now, some fans might be asking, are we really ready to move on from Cameron Richardson? He's 6'3", athletic, and still young. That's a fair question. But in this league, potential means nothing without performance. And frankly, the Raiders' actions are speaking louder than any debate. They didn't just add depth, they went out and stacked the secondary. Eric Stokes is expected to start at outside corner. Darnay Holmes is already taking first-team reps in nickel formations. And Lonnie Johnson Jr., while technically listed as a safety, brings that hybrid versatility, able to slide between safety and corner seamlessly. That's already 3 legit contributors, but it doesn't stop there. Yakorian Bennett is returning with something to prove after a rookie season full of reps. And behind him, a wave of new faces. Greedy Vance, Mello Dodson, and John Humphrey, all undrafted free agents, have joined the mix, and they're not here to warm benches. Add in players like Isaiah Pola-Mao and Jeremy Chin, who can both play in big nickel or slot roles, and the depth becomes almost overwhelming. And let's not forget Thomas Harper. He was a cornerback in college, and the coaches are already experimenting with him in multiple spots. Here's the reality. Versatility is king in Vegas. Head coach Pete Carroll isn't afraid to blur the lines between positions. He's known to convert offensive players to defense, shift safeties into nickel, and create matchups that confuse offenses. That flexibility is great for the team, but brutal for players like Richardson. He's not just fighting for a role, he's fighting against a system that no longer needs traditional boundary corners with limited traits. And the truth is, based on film alone, Richardson hasn't shown enough to stick. That's not an attack, it's just reality. Playing in the NFL is insanely difficult. And while Richardson still has time to develop, he's clearly on the edge of this crowded cornerback competition. If he steps up in camp and flashes the talent the team once hoped for, he might earn another shot. But if not, the Raiders have plenty of younger, hungrier, and more versatile options ready to take that jersey number. Let's talk about 2 players who may have already run out of chances, Cameron Richardson and Zamir White. First up, Richardson. Yes, he was a rookie. Yes, he was a 4th-round pick. But draft status doesn't mean much when the tape looks this bad. And Richardson's film from last year, it wasn't just rough, it was alarming. The Raiders gave him real opportunities, but he looked overwhelmed, unprepared, and completely out of sync with the speed of the game. And here's what makes it worse. There wasn't a big gap between Cameron Richardson and Darren Porter when they were drafted. Yet now, Porter's already getting first-team snaps while Richardson's struggling to justify even a backup role. In short, if he doesn't make a massive leap in training camp, he's gone. And honestly, that leap doesn't look likely. Now, let's shift to the backfield. This might surprise some fans, but it's time to talk about Zamir White as a serious cut candidate. Last season, he had every opportunity to prove himself. With Josh Jacobs out, White was given the keys to the run game. But instead of rising, he sank. Missed reads, poor vision, below average production. He didn't look like a lead back or even a dependable rotational piece. And the Raiders noticed. That's why they brought in Dylan Lobb, a player they hoped could offer spark. But even he hasn't shown enough. The truth is, both White and Lobb are now fighting for their roster lives. The Raiders' running back room last year was one of the worst in the league. Injuries, inconsistency, and lack of explosiveness left the offense stuck in the mud. Chip Kelly knew it. That's why, heading into this season, they prioritized change. And they didn't just hope for improvement, they acted. Bringing in Raheem Mostert was a statement. He's not here to compete. He's here to contribute. That leaves very little room for underperformers. And that's exactly what Zamir White and Dylan Lobb were last season. Unless one of them shocks everyone in training camp, the Raiders could move on from both. Let's talk about the most crowded room in Raiders camp, the running backs. Right now, it's a traffic jam back there, and the coaches are going to have to make some tough calls. Here's what we know. Ashton Jeanty and Raheem Mostert, lock them in. They're not going anywhere. Mostert may be older, but don't let that fool you. He's a veteran who's taken care of his body, hasn't been overused, and fits this offense perfectly. Chip Kelly's wide zone scheme? That's Mostert's playground. He thrived under Shanahan, then again under McDaniel, two of the best in the league at using that system. And he scored 30 touchdowns just 2 years ago. That kind of red zone talent doesn't just fade away. Ashton Jenney, on the other hand, is the future. Explosive. Visionary. The kind of runner you build a backfield around. So, that's 2 names locked. But the Raiders won't keep 6 running backs. 4 at most. Which means 2, maybe 3 will be gone. Here's who's left. Sincere McCormick, Zamir White, Dylan Lobb, Chris Collier. And this is where the real battle begins. McCormick has done nothing but impress. He runs hard, catches well, and plays like a guy with something to prove. Frankly, he might be better overall than Zamir White. And if it comes down to choosing between the two, McCormick might just win it. Zamir White has had chances, but the clock's ticking. If he doesn't dominate in preseason, he could be on the outside looking in. Then there's Dylan Lobb, who brings something the others don't, special teams value. He's fast, fearless, and knows how to return kicks and punts. That could earn him a spot, even if he's the 4th man in the rotation. But don't count out Chris Collier just yet. He's flying under the radar, but the talent is real. If he flashes in camp and preseason, the Raiders might decide to keep the 4 best backs, period. This isn't about draft status or hype anymore. It's about who can deliver right now. Let's wrap it up with one of the most unpredictable groups in football, the running backs. Now, Dylan Lobb? His biggest value may not come from taking handoffs. Instead, think special teams, gunning down punts, or lining up as the edge protector on kick returns. That's the kind of role that keeps a borderline player on the 53-man roster. But here's the wild card, Chris Collier. Collier's about to enter his 2nd year, and while his name hasn't exploded just yet, what if he flashes even a hint of what Raheem Mostert did early in his career? That's all it takes, a little flash, for the Raiders to say, wait, we might have something here. When you look at the bigger picture, the Raiders have some tough choices ahead. There are only so many roster spots, 55 technically, when you factor in the exceptions. Every extra running back you keep comes at a cost. Maybe a wide receiver loses a spot. Maybe it's a backup offensive lineman. And then there's the tight end room. Brock Bowers and Michael Mayer, they're locked in. Ian Thomas, a recent addition with real NFL starting experience, he's likely staying too. That's 3. But what if the team keeps 4? A versatile guy who can block, play fullback in short yardage, and step in if one tight end gets hurt. That's where Ismail Kadir comes in, a rookie, yes, but reports say he looks legit. He's earning attention. Now imagine carrying 4 tight ends, extra linemen, and still trying to squeeze in that last running back spot. Something's got to give. It wouldn't be shocking if both Zamir White and Dylan Lobb end up cut. That's the cold reality of a deep but reshaped roster. And don't forget, players like Dalton Wagner, DJ Glaze, and other rookies are making it hard to settle on just 8 linemen. 10 might be more realistic. In the end, it comes down to health, performance, and timing. Players like Dylan Parham, Cameron Richardson, Tommy Eichenberg, and Thayer Munford have to prove they're not just talented, but available, reliable, and ready. Because in this league, it's not just about potential. It's about right now. Let us know in the comments, who do you think could be the surprise cut nobody is talking about? Don't forget to subscribe, hit that thumbs up, and ring the bell icon so you never miss a real update straight out of Raider Nation. We'll see you in the next video. Until then, stay locked in.